I've always considered Ghostbusters my first passion. It's probably the first VHS tape of a real movie that I ever owned, and I used to watch it probably every day. I used to have a lot of the real Ghostbusters toys and figures, the firehouse, and even the Proton pack. I used to run around in that thing all the time. I have friends today that still say they remember me running around in that thing. Back in 2009, after the video game came out, my passion got reinvigorated. I decided that I was going to finally make a real costume as close as I could. I wasn't exactly worried about it being 100% screen accurate, but close enough for people to tell and close enough to satisfy my desire and liking. But this isn't the story of the costume. The costume's only the first step. The end goal's always been the Proton pack. We now have Majin Zendo TV t-shirts available on rayjohn.com. Please check the description below for more details.
This one's for the crew.
Alright, so as I stated before, after the 2009 video game, I got reinvigorated big time. I got my costume ready, and I got everything else set up, and it was time for me to build my pack. And this was my first attempt and failure at building a Proton pack. Alright, so this is it. This was my poor Proton pack that's 10 years old now. We'll go over everything here in a minute, but I'll show you what I did do. Now, all the little parts that were on it aren't here fully. It's been moved around to about 4 different locations in the last 10 years from the original home I lived in when I was starting to build it, and it looks like it's in much distress. I guess we'll start with the body first. I started off by cutting out this template out of this pressboard, and found just odds and ends. My idea then was that if I could put the pressboard on an Alice pack frame, which this is a real Alice pack frame, that I could fake everything else. I didn't have a budget to build like a $3,000 pack like everybody else does, and I think I was a manager at a Pizza Hut at the time, so I didn't have much money after we paid rent, and this is up when I lived in Maryland. So my idea was to fake it. So what I ended up doing was, this is like a big plastic cake pan that I put a pie pan on top of and drilled these holes out with these big washers. This is like red, some kind of like paper stuff, or it's like, I don't know, transparent, not transparent, but whatever you would call it. Just like this blue stuff. It's like this plastic blue. All of this was wired up at one time with a switch that did work. This was in here. Over the course of time, this thing's been thrown around and tried to bend. I've tried to store it in different areas, and to my dismay, this is about how it turned out. There's a lot of hot glue that's come apart now, and it would need a repaint, but it didn't cycle through the cyclotron, but all this did light up. When you clicked the button up here, this had lights behind it, LEDs and whatever I had at the time, and this did too. And it was running off of these batteries. I had another battery pack as well that sat up in here that could be changed out easily if needed. And it's just held to the Alice pack by zip ties and bolts at the bottom. So got windy all of a sudden. But yeah, so the gun, well, let's go again. This is just split loom. It's still got the split in it. I think I got this cheap at like Home Depot. There's the gun itself actually does come off of the pack with this little connector that I found. It just slides in At the time, I thought it was a decent alternative to the V-hook, the Dixie cup bracket, that at the time, like I said, I couldn't get. It used to have like a blue or a green wire that did come out of here that went into places, and there's all these little LEDs I stole off of like car chargers and stuff that used to actually light up before this thing got really messed up. And then I would take like heat sinks and stuff off of old computer parts and everything. But then I added this little hook here that allowed it, hold on, let me see if I can do this with one hand, that would move back and forth and allow me to sit this on my belt. So it would kind of sit on my belt when I needed to when I didn't have it on here. So anyway, the gun itself is an amalgamation and Frankenstein of a lot of parts. The front part is off of an airsoft gun, which I used to have a plastic tube that stuck out the end, and the wire, the split loom just fell out the end, and it was all wired up to where the wire came through, and this little switch here would turn on. You could see lights all in it, and these lights, this is broke. This used to light up. That's the inside, I think, of a actual car charger from like 2008. This was the hilt of a plastic toy lightsaber. Just random odds and ends that I put together to try to make it look like a neutrino wand, a positron collider. This thing was functional. I found this old video from back then that I made to show my brother when I lived up there, to send to him, and we'll cut to that real quick. Alright buddy, this is my Proton gun. I built it out of a bunch of stuff. This is cardboard, this is plastic. This was a lightsaber toy from Star Wars. This came off of a plastic gun. If you can tell, that's a plastic thing right there. Now, if you take and you click this, the light lights up, this light lights up, this light lights up, down inside lights up. Now, I don't know if you can tell with the light on. If I press the button at the end, it does like that. Alright, now I'm going to take you a video of it when the lights are off. Alright, you ready? I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. You take it and you press the button, and the end lights up. It's bright as shit too. You can actually use it as a flashlight on the wall. But yeah. It's powered right now by 4 AA batteries and 3 9-volts. But when I attach the pack, this wire right here is going to come through this hose to attach the pack like in the movie. I'm going to run the wires up the hose into the pack where I'm going to have a battery housing, and everything's going to be ran from this switch. So when I turn the gun on, the whole pack will light up, because there will be lights in the pack too. Alright. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little trip down memory lane. It's very cringy, but as you can see, there used to be a button, well, the button's still here, right there, that you could actuate, and it basically had a flashlight in the end, and it actually did work, and it didn't look that terrible when it was in its prime. Like I said, a lot of things have fallen off since, and I had the basic shape down. My idea was just like, if I could fake it, the costume looked great, and if I could put it in a budget and fake it to where at least it was identifiable, it would be something that I made. Sometimes just the satisfaction of knowing that you did something for yourself and you figured it out, and that kind of gratification goes a long way. But as I got deeper invested in the project, I realized there was limitations on being able to find certain things that I was looking for, and then I ended up coming to the conclusion that, like, all right, maybe I need to put this project on the shelf for now until I can get a better job or I get a little bit of money, and then I can revisit it. And here we are 10 years later, and it hasn't gotten any better. In fact, this thing's an aggravation to find somewhere to store most of the time, and I think my wife really hates this thing. But there's awesome prospect for what we have going on here, because I'm ahead of the curve when it comes to having this Alice pack frame already, because my intentions on having a working Proton pack have not waned, for I shall still have one very soon that is going to be of decent quality, and I'm extremely excited. So please stay tuned for those videos to come, because I have now these, and I am going to mod the hell out of this thing to look like it should. I've already ordered some of the parts. I'm just waiting for them to come in. This was my birthday present to myself this year. So out with the old, in with the new. And I will be documenting my journey and finally having what childhood me would call the most important thing in the world.